Welcome to Byte-Sized Agency Briefs, a webinar series that packs a ton of important agency information on one topic from one expert into a 25-minute brief. Why 25 minutes? Because who has the attention span for much more these days? And you can squeeze in a listen between meetings with time for a bathroom break or coffee refill before your next meeting.
Thanks for tuning in. This is Byte-Sized Agency Briefs. I'm your host, Steve Guberman from Agency Outside, where I work with agency owners to help them turn their agency into the agency of their dreams. I'm here with my friend, Elizabeth Eiss from Results Resourcing. Elizabeth, thanks for joining me.
Thank you. So glad to be here, Steve.
The quick 30-second download, what do you do and how'd you get to Results Resourcing and where you are now?
So I think of us as matchmakers, frankly. We match small and mid-sized businesses with vetted virtual freelancers who frankly are other businesses. And so it's really about finding the great skills and work style match between service providers so each can accomplish their mission and get bigger, scale, have more impact in the world. And that's really what we're all about. And Results Resourcing is my company. I founded it and I designed and co-developed the platform. And we're really a hybrid. We're a job platform like many of the other DIY platforms out there, but we're also staffing agency. So we actually provide a human recruiter to help our clients really write down what it is they need, because you don't get that right, you're not going to find the person you want. But then we actually go find people and we do the recruiting function. And at the end of the day, we resource results, which is why we named the company the way we did.
Like you planned it that way. And so you're not a robot. It's not a series of robots. It's not a web app. It's human people building a strategy for an agency to find the talent they need, go out and search for it. Kind of like the old Lycos thing. Lycos, go find it. You talk about the DIY versus the done for you model, and you guys kind of reinvented DIY as done for you. What does that really mean for agency owners?
This came about actually because I was my own first client. And I was a power user of many of the leading platforms out there, and they're great for what they are if you really are great at recruiting, but most people aren't. And what I find for creative agencies and many other small and mid-sized businesses is that it's tempting to go out and do it yourself, because there's a form you fill out, buttons you push, and candidates pop up, and it's just like instant gratification. But if you didn't describe exactly what you needed right, and you want to spend hours scrolling through profiles, it's an enormous waste of time. And many of our clients come to us after having done a lot of DIY searches themselves. And so I formed the company because I happen to have had a corporate background that included HR and recruiting when running businesses, and I'm pretty good at finding great candidates. And so we've developed a platform that does all the work. So the humans that work for us only work on stuff that human brains are good at, like building a job description or interviewing candidates, not on all the rote stuff that a machine can do. So to me, it's all about having the human being do what they do best and outsourcing the rest. And when that's the principle we use for ourselves with recruiting and what we offer creative agencies.
And I think that's one of the biggest challenges owners face, right? So I work with a ton of different agency owners on any level, from the solopreneur looking to bring on their first employee, or maybe they're freelancing to a couple of people, or they're using a couple of freelancers, or 20, 30, 40 people agency. And so talk about, how does that owner or the senior leadership team know, what to outsource and when to do it, but then what to get off their plate and why they shouldn't be doing it?
Well, I think that's a great place to start, whether you're talking about a solopreneur or a 40-person agency, is that person needs to think like a CEO. I mean, they're running a business. They're not handling all the tasks that need to get done. And if there's any plan to grow and scale and deliver client value, that's where time should be spent. So we spend a lot of time talking about core versus non-core value. I mean, there's a lot of work that has to get done to run an agency successfully, but it doesn't mean the CEO or a senior leader needs to be doing it. So one of the things that we developed fairly recently was a tool that we call the ROI of time calculator. And it's just an online tool that helps walk somebody through how are you spending your time. And it actually starts with what's the dollar value of an hour of your time? Yeah. And I guarantee you, nobody says minimum wage. Most people want 100, 150, 200, whatever it might be. It doesn't really matter.
So long as they understand what that means, that what's their value and what is their time worth, and what does it cost them to even turn the lights on, right? Yep. So there's those calculations they have to do up front. I played with your tool. I think it's brilliant. I think it's a great way for owners to visualize what they do with their time. How much did it just cost them to send out an invoice, or to interview a candidate or that wasn't a qualified candidate, or to do some marketing outreach, versus could they be using that time to better work with their senior leadership team, or build a strategy for a client, or do actual billable work that they love doing. And so this tool that you built, I think, is really valuable. What kind of feedback are you getting on it?
Really very similar to what you said. I used to talk about these things, but the tool helps people put their own numbers in. They can take it multiple times and play with it at one rate versus another, or even if they're not sure how much time they're spending on some non-core things like invoicing or client support or copywriting. You can play with it with different scenarios, not only for the CEO, but for a team, and get a sense of what is outsourceable work that isn't work that your client's going to pay you for, because that's where you should be spending your time. Yeah,
exactly. And so then does it say, and I don't remember what the final screen looks like. I remember giving me a breakdown that I just kind of came up with some fictitious numbers of, it said like 33% of my time was non-billable or something like that. And in the time that I was spending billable was costing X amount of dollars, something to that effect. So do you then say these are the kind of resources that you should tap into in order to not be doing these kinds of things?
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to help you identify areas that maybe aren't contributing to the bottom line, positively, that they're costs to you. And it's just places to explore. How might I outsource this, either to somebody in my own organization if the CEO is doing it, or should you outsource to a contractor or another service provider that is a profession at bookkeeping or something like that. And it's a tool that, works in a lot of different ways, because one thing is we had down there as an option, how much time are you spending on like copywriting type work? I mean, if that's your passion and that's what you do for a living, obviously that's your value proposition. So, but it might be copywriting around things that aren't delivering value to your client. So it's just a very flexible tool that should raise questions. And one of the things that we hear a lot is, oh, I can't afford to outsource. But that's because we're not really thinking about the cost of our time and the opportunity cost of doing things. And so, sometimes it's a leap of faith that, if I outsource invoicing, for example, I'm going to make up that time by more client value that's going to generate revenue. So at least it'll help you quantify how you're spending your time and the cost, and how to think about how to reallocate your time and money.
So I'm an owner of an agency. I've got 0 employees, 5 employees, 50 employees. And I go through this tool and I identify, all right, it's costing me X amount of dollars to write invoices, or to do copywriting that I shouldn't be doing, or, whatever those things are that are not my passion, and that are not really making me money. What's the next move? I need to decide, do I bring on a freelancer? Do I hire somebody full-time? How do you guys help them? Like, what's the next strategic move for an owner?
Well, we start with helping our potential clients with a conversation. We do a free consult, because frankly, some of the time it's starting to sort that process out. Okay, here's what the tool told me. What are my options? And hiring is a big decision, whether you're talking about hiring a full-time person or a freelancer. I mean, you're hiring talent that can contribute value, and that's an important decision. So we always start with a free consult, and I'm happy to talk. I love talking to people about how to think creatively about talent. And then if the freelancer is the right choice, our service is really all about helping the client be really clear about. In fact, we write the job description for them, as a result of the conversation we have. And then we go out and find, vet, and curate a choice of freelancers.
Right.
It's just, we're going to go find people that are precisely calibrated for your business requirements. We'll come back and tell you if that combination of things you want can't be found, or certainly at the price you want it for. I mean, a lot of people ask for 100 things and they want to pay, an economical rate. And, we can be a reality check.
So give me a unicorn at minimum wage, and not happening.
Yeah.
What about that decision? And I'm a firm believer of hire slow, fire fast. And obviously, if you build strategically, you don't have to do the latter, hopefully, right? But the hire slow part, the transition from I'm now a solopreneur, I've got 5 freelancers. Do I need to bring somebody on full time? What's that transition look like? And how do I make that decision as an owner?
It could be a lot of different things. And I think while I like the idea of hire slowly, fire fast, I think that there should be it should be a very thoughtful process of hiring, whether it's a freelancer or not. I mean, obviously with an employee, a lot comes with that vetting process and letting somebody go if it doesn't work out. And while freelancers can come and go more easily because they're contract, they're not employees. Right. It's also, it's a great loss of invested time. And so I think that our goal is to find freelancers that can form a durable relationship. Freelancers aren't widgets, employees aren't widgets. And and it goes back to finding the requirements up front and being really clear. And it's worth taking extra time there, because then you're less likely to say, oh, it wasn't a fit after 30 days and you start over. Right. With our platform, we have tons of clients that have worked with the same freelancer for years, and they really just form a part of the team. And eventually those freelancers become such a part of the team, sometimes they end up going full time. So I think that it's interesting transition between employees and freelancers.
Do you think owners should kind of have that mindset up front of, if I bring somebody on and they freelance 10 hours a week, and then after a few months, 30 hours a week, and then eventually they can become a full-time employee, is that still an attractive roadmap for a candidate? Or is that kind of still, is that in today's climate, is that kind of a pipe dream for an agency owner? Or should they really focus on keeping a freelancer just loyal as a freelancer?
Well, I think you can go both ways, but I think what we're really seeing is that there's a habit to feeling you have to bring somebody on as an employee, because that's just the way it's always been. And you feel like you've got more control, which you really don't. I mean, people are going to do what they want to do. And I think you can have a very successful relationship by outsourcing a key function or important function to the right freelancer that can just complement your team. The second thing is that more and more people are developing side hustles or specialties, and they form their own businesses. They don't want to be your employee. They're not trying to gain ground as a freelancer to become an employee. They've got their own business. They have other clients. It's keeping them fresh by representing other clients. And so there's value in that. And the more you bring in employees that only work on your stuff, the less variety you bring to the table of experiences and what's happening in the marketplace. So it's not a clear-cut answer, but I am a firm believer that I think that a team of freelancers can complement a business on a long-term strategic basis.
Yeah. What are your thoughts or feelings on outsourcing offshore talent, VAs, even creative and strategic talent?
I think it can work. But I think you have to go into it with your eyes open. I mean, there's time zone issues, there's cultural issues, and which can be good and bad. Many of our, we happen to be focused on the United States and Canada, and most of our clients want people that understand the culture here and speak English well and work in the same time zone. Anything's possible. The other thing I would say is that a lot of people underestimate what it takes to work with people in other countries. And even services in different countries, particularly VA services, that's probably one of the most popular. They tend to come with very packaged programs. And it's a matter of, well, do you want to fit the package, or do you want resources that fit your need and allow you to grow? There's no clear-cut answer to that. And the last thing I would mention is that while bad things can happen anywhere in the world from a technology standpoint, there is security issues. And so not that bad things, again, can't happen in the United States, they absolutely can, but it just adds another element of risk. And every person needs to make those decisions for themselves, but it's just something that I rarely hear people even think about.
Yeah. And so I guess in the past couple of years, COVID, people have said, I'm going to quit my job. We had the Great Resignation, and I'm going to open up my own shop, and I'm going to do strategy or design or coding or writing or whatever. And I'm going to live in a van, or I'm going to go live in an Airbnb in Breckenridge or wherever they may be. How are you seeing that kind of shift to doing my own thing affecting the job market for agencies?
Well, I think that that's definitely a trend, but I've also been reading a lot of articles about people that are kind of tired of the van life, and and maybe having an apartment or having roots isn't so bad. So I just think that I think agencies just need to be open to the fact that people want to work in different ways. And while there may be a very clear idea of these are my requirements and this is all I'm going to think about, flexibility, whether it's the tools people can use or where they work or the hours, and even resistance to, if you're East Coast, I don't really want to work with somebody in the West Coast. Well, if they're willing to work East Coast hours, who cares?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, what matters is they get the job done well for you. And and so I think I would just encourage people, whether you're talking about employees or freelancers, to be flexible and creative, because the more flexible and creative you are, the more you're going to attract the kind of talent that's got the flexible, creative brains, as opposed to somebody that wants to work in a rote way.
But that's also part of the governmental guidelines of, is it a freelancer versus an employee? You have to let them set their own hours. You have to let them work from wherever you have to let them use their own technology. And there's a couple of other things. But there's also a mindset. I work better on creative work. I work better at night. On like tactical business stuff, I work better in the mornings. So allowing people to know when they work best and where they work best and producing the best work as a result of that, everybody wins, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the better freelancers are going to be attracted to people that appreciate the kind of value they bring and allow a dynamic for everybody to deliver great value together. Yeah.
So talk about some of the things that you're seeing agencies do nowadays, because it's so competitive, to be more attractive to candidates. Because it's not always about the dollar sign these days, right? There's younger generations that want those meaningful clients, meaningful projects. They want to impact social justices, things like that. But what are the other things you're seeing from agencies?
I definitely see agencies coming to us for broader experience, in different industries, areas they may be trying to migrate to, or, attract different kinds of clients, different demographics, and looking for freelancers that bring that to the table, either in their, who they are or their portfolios. So we see that a lot. And I see more and more people trying to kind of cobble together complementary values, especially when you're a smaller agency. You may have gotten into your passion is graphic design or something like that. And are there web design agencies or people that do complementary things that, the sum is greater than the parts kind of thing. So I think those are definitely key trends. And I think the other thing kind of just goes back to the message of flexibility is while it's really important, especially if you've made investments in certain software tools and things like that, that people have the core skills you need, but somebody might not have mastered a particular tool, but CRMs in particular, they've got great skills in another tool that's very complementary. So I think that having some flexibility and focusing on the value and the core skills that somebody can bring to the table, is really beneficial to at least talking to the candidates to find out what they can bring to the table.
Yeah, awesome. No, I appreciate that. So coming down few minutes left, I have a couple of rapid fire questions I want to ask you.
Oh, okay.
Not necessarily about your business, not necessarily about staffing, just some kind of random quick fire things. So, craziest thing other than washing down all of your food when it entered your house, what was the craziest thing you did during quarantine?
Oh, I guess I wasn't very crazy. Not so crazy, but I ended up cooking a lot. And so I really experimented with recipes I found through the newspapers about trying this, trying that. So I guess that would be about as crazy as I got. Actually broke my Starbucks habit too, and I learned how to make my own espresso.
There's so much value in making your own espresso, and you probably saved like $1,000 a month. So good for you.
Exactly.
According to pundits, you can now buy a house if you're a millennial by not buying Starbucks. So good. What's a book or a podcast you're vibing on right now?
Well, the book I am vibing on and highly recommend isn't a new one, but it's called Thank You for Being Late. I can't remember the subtitle, but it's by Thomas L. Friedman. And what I really love about the book is, he talks, first of all, he talks about who the most amazing entrepreneur is in the world, and it's Mother Nature. And he tells a really interesting story about, Mother Nature and entrepreneurism, and how Mother Nature isn't judgmental. Mother Nature just adjusts and is constantly dynamically making changes. So that's an interesting element to the book. But the other thing that attracts me about this book is frankly talks about the rise of technology, and it's basically affecting all elements of our lives, and it's increasing, by Moore's law. And I guess the reason I selfishly am so inspired by that is because that's what we're trying to do. We use technology for everything we can do, using technology to make great matches. But at the end of the day, it's the human element that is interviewing people, interviewing the client to define the job requirements, then interviewing the candidates to go, okay, on paper, on digital paper, it says this, but here's insights that we can bring to the table. And I just feel strongly that technology needs to serve people. And we have to think about how we don't automate people out of it, but we integrate people into it. And that's what we're really trying to do at Results Resourcing.
I love that. Using the power of tech, but not allowing it to do for you, because who knows what's that going to do, but allowing it to assist you. Yeah,
the algorithms are black boxes, and they're only as good as the people that designed those algorithms, Yeah. And so I have great faith in humans.
I love that. Finally, best piece of advice that you have maybe for an agency owner that you can leave them with?
Well, I'm going to quote my, the guy that's influenced me forever, Peter Drucker. And he basically said a couple things that are cool. One, he said, do what you do best and outsource the rest.
Love it.
And he basically said that, CEOs are responsible for two things. And that's, basically marketing and innovation. And I think those two things go together, especially creative agencies, not only for what they do, but also for how they guide the clients.
Yeah, they're trusted by their clients, so they've got to be doing those things, and leadership has to drive that. So yeah, I love it. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining me and for your time today. And where can people find you and your new tool?
Oh, thank you. It's Results Resourcing. We actually have a .NET domain for a variety of reasons, and we have an insights page on the tab, which really is where the ROI of time is included. And if it's possible to include this in your show notes, happy to do that too. And would love to just have a conversation for people as they try it out and want to experiment with some of the ideas we've talked about today. Thank you so much for having me today. Really enjoyed it, Steve. It's great.
My pleasure. Awesome. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thanks again for tuning in to Byte-Sized Agency Briefs. As always, if you found value in this episode, chances are someone else will too, so please share it with your network. Also, if you know someone with expert knowledge on a topic that agency owners would love, drop me a note. Let's get them on. Finally, find someone to hug today.